There are some things too painful to remember, but too dangerous to forget. For 3 years, I served him, believing I was walking the path to divine power. I washed his feet, carried his Bible, fasted for days, and obeyed without question. I called him Father because I thought he was leading me to God. But instead, he led me into darkness. A darkness that still haunts me to this day. I was promised the gift of prophecy. I was told that if I remained loyal, I would see visions, hear from God, and command thousands in His name. But what they never told me was the price I would have to pay. This is my confession. There are things I will say today that will never leave your mind. Things that will haunt you. Things that will make you question what you believe. I was once like you, hopeful, eager, full of faith. I believed in the anointing. I believed that with sacrifice, obedience, and patience, I would become one of God's greatest prophets. I believed that power was given to those who serve diligently. But today, as I sit in the ruins of my life, I realize the truth. I was never chosen. I was only used. I remember the first day I met my spiritual father. He was a great man of God, a prophet whose words could shake nations. I had watched him on television, seen him lay hands on people and reveal the secrets of their lives as though he had been present in their past. When I first entered his church, I felt like I had found my home. I had struggled for years to hear from God, to understand my calling, but nothing ever happened. My prayers felt empty. My fasting was meaningless. But when I saw him, I thought, this man carries what I lack. He can unlock my destiny. I knelt before him, trembling with expectation. He looked at me and smiled. He told me, if you stay with me, you will prophesy. You will hear what others cannot. But you must be willing to follow me completely. To be honest, I didn't hesitate. For 3 years, I served him. I cleaned his house. I drove him to his crusades. I carried his Bible and his towel. I learned to stay in the background, to speak only when spoken to obey without question. He would tell me to fast for 7 days, and I would do it without food or water. He would tell me to pray at midnight, and I would stay awake until dawn. I watched him prophesy. I watched him call people's names, expose their secrets, and declare breakthroughs. And every time I watched, I waited. When will my turn come? Then, one evening, he called me into his private room. He told me that, your time has come, but there is a process. You must undergo what I went through. You must meet the one who anointed me. I felt my heart race. Finally, my moment had arrived. He told me we would travel to see his own spiritual father, the great man who had made him who he was. And I was ready. My brother, I had no idea I was walking into my own destruction. We traveled to a distant city, where my spiritual father took me to a heavily guarded mansion. Inside, I met the man who would change my life forever. The senior pastor was not like my spiritual father. His presence was darker, heavier. He didn't smile much. When he looked at me, it felt as though my soul had been stripped bare. That was the beginning of my torment. First, they locked me in a room for 3 days. No food, no water, no human interaction. Only darkness and the sound of strange chants playing from hidden speakers. My body weakened. My mind drifted. The hunger and thirst were unbearable, but I told myself it was part of the process. Then came the next step. They took me to a river in the dead of night. The water was cold, thick with mud, and smelled of decay. The senior pastor stood at the riverbank, his hands raised, murmuring words I did not understand. I was asked to step in the water. I obeyed. The moment the water touched my body, it was as though invisible hands were reaching for me beneath the surface. I felt as though I was drowning even though my head was above water. Then he called me forward and told me that I am being reborn, placing his hands on my head. He pushed me under once, twice, 3 times. When I rose from the water, my body was shaking. My heart was pounding. And that was when the voices began. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept hearing whispers, faint at first, then louder, speaking in languages I did not recognize. My dreams became violent. I saw figures standing in my room. I started waking up with scratches on my skin. My head throbbed whenever I tried to pray. And worst of all, I still could not prophesy. I returned home, but something inside me had changed. I was no longer the devoted servant I had once been. The presence of God felt distant. My prayers felt hollow. The hunger I once had for righteousness was gone, replaced by an emptiness I could not explain. You will be shocked to know that, after this baptism or whatever that was when I started drinking. At first, it was just a little, small sips to help me sleep, to silence the whispers. But the more I drank, the more I needed. I would wake up with headaches, trembling, desperate for another taste. My spiritual father noticed my decline. But instead of rebuking me, he called me aside. He told me that I was not yet complete, and that there is one final ritual. My body stiffened. The last ritual at the river had already broken me. What else could they possibly do? He told me that it will seal the anointing forever. And like a fool, I believed him. That night, I returned to the senior pastor's house. The room was dim, filled with incense. A strange energy hung in the air, thick and suffocating. The senior pastor stood before me, his face unreadable. He placed his hands on my shoulders, his grip firm, possessive. He asked me if I was ready to receive. I nodded, though something inside me screamed. Then he stepped closer. I remember the heaviness of the air, the way my skin crawled with dread. I remember his breath against my skin as he told me that this act is the gateway to my power. And I remember the pain when he entered me from my back. A pain so deep it split me open, not just in my body, but in my soul. I wanted to scream, to run. But I could not do neither. My spiritual father had promised me the anointing. He had told me this was my path. I was convinced that the agony was part of the sacrifice. That when it was over, I would rise with power beyond my understanding. But when it was over, I was empty. Something had been taken from me that night. Something I would never get back. The pain. The humiliation. The destruction of everything I once was. When it was over, I could not move. I had given everything. And received nothing. Since that night, my life has crumbled. I have tried to prophesy, but my words are hollow. I have tried to pray, but the heavens are silent. I have tried to serve God, but I know He no longer knows me. I am a shell of the man I once was. I drink to forget, but the memories haunt me. I try to move on, but I am chained to what was done to me. My spiritual father no longer calls. The senior pastor has moved on. And I am nothing. I was not anointed. I was not chosen. I was used. I was sacrificed. The most painful aspect is that, if I make a little mistake, and lose my sense of awareness, I will ease on myself without knowing. That is the level he has gotten me to. I don't know how this is going to end for me. But I am begging everyone, who has any help anyhow, to help me get deliverance. I would be more grateful to such a person. Thank you for having me share my story with you all. This is the reality many never speak about. The hunger for power, the desperation to be called, and the blind loyalty to so-called spiritual fathers have led many into destruction. What we have just heard is not fiction, it is a painful truth that happens more often than we think. How many more young men and women will fall victim to these so-called prophets, sacrificing their souls for a gift that was never meant to come through darkness? How many will wake up too late, only to realize that what they sought after has now become the very thing that destroys them. If there is one thing to take away from this confession, let it be this: not all that shines in the church is light. Not every voice claiming to speak for God is truly of Him. And not every anointing is from above. Be careful who you follow. Be careful who you call Father. Because sometimes, the very hand that blesses you may be the one that ruins you forever. This has been another eye-opening revelation on Dangerous African Confessions HD. If you have a story to share, or if you have been through something similar, let us know in the comments. Give this video a thumbs up, and let's spread awareness together. And remember, truth will always find its way out, no matter how long darkness tries to hide it. Until next time, stay vigilant, stay wise, and stay free.